Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's session. So my name is Lois, and I'm the Deep Tech Pioneers Coordinator here at Hello Tomorrow. And I'm really glad to welcome you to this already third episode of our Been There, Done That series, where, again, if you've been here before, the idea is to introduce you to a few of the really inspiring startups in our community. We call them our Deep Tech Pioneers, and you'll hear firsthand about their journey and hopefully gain some insights from their experiences. So before I get started, maybe first say a quick hello to Alejandro. Thanks again for joining us. And for all the others on the session today, happy to hear where you're coming from, who you are. Say a quick hello in the chat. We're happy to hear from you. And also just, maybe before we dive into our session with Alejandro, I know some of you might not be familiar with our work at Hello Tomorrow. So I just wanted to touch base on a few points of what we do at Hello Tomorrow. So Hello Tomorrow is a global organization, and we've been dedicating ourselves to the work of unlocking the power of deep tech. And our roots started about 10 years ago. And today, one of the key things that we really do is to organize events. We've already organized over 100 international events. And the objective behind that is just really to foster, a very close network of deep tech actors, which welcomes actors from all over the world and from across several industries. And actually, speaking of our events, we have our big event that we organize annually, and it's coming up very soon. So we're hosting the Hello Tomorrow Global Summit in person in Paris this December 2nd and 3rd. Essentially, for us, it is the biggest international gathering of the deep tech ecosystem. We welcome about 3,500 attendees, which will include entrepreneurs, investors, industry leaders, accelerators, and research institutions, among others. During the 2 days, our goal is really just to inspire attendees about the incredible possibilities of deep tech, and also, obviously, to generate some valuable connections between the diverse actors that are attending. So if you haven't already, we'd be really glad to welcome you to this event and happy to tell you more about all of that. So don't hesitate to ask it on the chat or also just to contact us after this event. Beyond our events, we do actually also stay active within our network throughout the year. So for startups, we've built a community, which I've already mentioned. It's called the Deep Tech Pioneers Community. And we offer these startups visibility in our network, resources that will help them grow their company, and also business and funding opportunities. And we also organize our annual Global Challenge, which is our deep tech startup competition. It's closed now, but if you want to know more, again, just don't hesitate to send us a message and we'll tell you more about it. For investors, we do share investment opportunities and make introductions with startups from our Deep Tech Pioneers community. And also we work with corporations to provide tailored services on open innovation across all industries and technologies. So that's a quick bit about us. And without further delay, I'm happy to introduce our guest speaker today. So again, this is Alejandro Tocigl, and who is the co-founder and CEO of Miraculous. And so Miraculous is a US-based startup who works to make complex protocols easy and accessible to scientists everywhere. So this helps obviously in many ways, but it most importantly helps to accelerate important research in healthcare and among other areas as well. Hi, Alejandro, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Doing well. So just really happy to have this discussion with you and to put a spotlight on your important work. So just for the attendees to get a bit of an idea of the rough schedule for today, first we'll have Alejandro speak more about his technology. Then I'll have the opportunity to ask him some questions to dig deeper, but you'll also have the opportunity to ask your questions. So don't hesitate to go to the questions tab on the right-hand side of the screen and just ask your questions. You can upvote them, and those that are voted the highest will be asked first, and Alejandro will be able to answer those questions. So yeah, don't hesitate to interact with us, and now handing the mic to you, Alejandro.
Thank you, and thanks again for inviting me to participate. It's been quite a few years since I participated at Hello Tomorrow, and I still remember it was a really great event that also helped us and really motivated us to keep pushing towards where we are today. It was, again, a really good event. It was one of the first startup competitions that we ever participated, and we just have really good memories from that participation back in 2013 or 14. And with that, I just wanted to tell you a bit more about what we do. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Miraculous, and our mission is to advance science and improve lives faster together. We build tools, life sciences tools, for researchers all around the world that can enable understanding diseases in faster, better, and hopefully with that as well, defining the future of, or help define the future of healthcare. We started in 2015. We're a venture-backed company based out of San Francisco. We have a very broad IP portfolio, so we build deep technology. We have over 40 patent applications today, 4 of them already issued in the US, Europe, and Asia. We're roughly 50 employees. We're growing quite rapidly. We have many open positions open. So if you're interested in joining a life sciences company based out of the US, please feel free to apply. Again, we're looking at several positions across different domains. We are a very diverse group of people, as you can probably tell from my accent. We are over 16 different nationalities. We have over 25 languages spoken in the company, and I think that also fosters a lot of creativity, a lot of out-of-the-box thinking, and that has led us to come up with really innovative solutions. We started focusing on microRNA as a biomarker for cancer detection, and what happened is that from the very beginning, we always wanted to simplify how we look at diseases. So we started building technology to automate and simplify the detection of this biomarker. And soon after doing that, we realized that the technology itself that we were developing was becoming a central point of what we were doing. And that's when we decided to pivot the focus of the company to become a platform company, a deep tech company, where we could basically use to tackle different applications within the life sciences space. And what we've seen is that there's advances in life sciences that have been dramatic. Just to give you an example, the first human genome to ever be sequenced was back in 2003. It took 13 years to be accomplished, over $2.7 billion, 20 international sites working together, hundreds of sequencing instruments working together to gather 23 gigabytes of data over a 30-year project. Nowadays, you can sequence an entire genome in less than 2 days for less than $1,000 in one lab, one instrument with the same amount of information. In other aspects, also within life sciences, there's been dramatic advances as well. As you all know, we have nowadays CRISPR, these molecular scissors that can be used to cut and edit specific parts of the genome. There's because of synthetic biology, we can now basically create life from scratch, and from a blood tube today, we can understand the health state of a fetus or the state of someone's cancer. However, one of the things that we don't see it's what happens in the back end. So when we think about genetic testing, when we think about complex diseases and with the way we diagnose them, there's a lot of work that happens in the lab. And this is a picture, as you can see on the far right, of 1990. There's another picture of 2020, and there isn't much change between one picture and the other. What has changed is primarily the computer. But what happens to automate all these complex workflows are still pretty much the same. So we still use these large robotic liquid handlers that are expensive, are tedious to set up. They require a lot of effort and staffing to keep running. They require hundreds of samples to be cost effective, and it's not really a viable solution to the majority of labs that are out there. So another thing that happens is that all these traditional automation solutions are primarily destined to these large genome centers that are in the top of the pyramid. But when we think about health, we need to think about how we democratize health. We need to think about how we can decentralize it and make it simple enough so that it can be accessible to everyone, anywhere, around the world. So then when we start going down the pyramid, we see that there's a much larger amount of labs out there that do not have access to a state-of-the-art molecular testing. And that's what we're here for. So if we look at other industries, we have seen similar trends. For example, in the printing industry, first we started with this big commercial printing press. Nowadays, there's printers pretty much everywhere. Similar thing happened with the computer industry when, again, we started with a large, expensive mainframe computer. Nowadays, everyone has a PC, which is a lot more flexible, affordable, and also portable. So what we do at Miraculous, we have basically developed a platform which is a full stack solution for enabling biology, simplifying science and make it accessible to everyone anywhere. And the way it works, we have an instrument we call the Miro Canvas, is what you see here in the center of the slide. You load the cartridge, then you load the reagents dependent on what test you want to do. We also have a user-intuitive software that allows users to create new methods in a fully automated fashion. They don't need to script. They don't need to think too much in terms of where are all those reagents going to execute the workflow they're interested in. And then on the back end, while the user is thinking, and really what we want is for researchers to be doing science, not to be piping in reagents. We think that their time is so much more valuable if they're thinking of new methods, if they're thinking of new ways to understand diseases, if they're thinking of new ways to tackle diseases. We want them to focus on that. And we focus on the rest. We focus on how we automate what they want to run in the lab. We also partner with reagent companies like Twist Biosciences, for example, where we can offer their reagents through our platform. And in that way, we're always thinking on how we can make our users' life simpler. And so now users can buy a complete solution from our website. They can buy our platform. They can also buy reagents from different vendors. And if they don't want to use our reagents, they can also buy their own reagents and use them in our platform. Our first application is in next generation sequencing. What we're seeing is that next generation sequencing is becoming a focal point in healthcare, not just for the detection of very complex diseases, but also in the understanding on how to treat specific diseases. And even if we go back to the very origin of life, we can now perform whole genome sequencing on embryos pre-implantation that can tell us more about what's going to be the genetic composition of that baby, and also help us predict or prevent specific diseases. So we are enabling that with our first product, the Miro Canvas, where we can basically fully automate and simplify the processing and the library preparation of a patient's sample so that it's ready to be sequenced. It's a compact benchtop solution for laboratory automation. It's affordable and flexible. It's user programmable. Depending on what you want to do, you can modify specific protocols and you can share them with the community as well. And it's broadly compatible with any type of workflows and any type of sequencers. And with this, the goal is really to enable next generation sequencing to be accessible to everyone. When we think about specific examples on where next generation sequencing can really help, we are very, very proud to be nowadays collaborating with one of the best children's hospitals in the US. And just to give you a short story, these two, now they're not babies anymore, but once they were babies, they arrived to the ICU without a clear diagnosis. In order for doctors to understand and to diagnose what these babies were suffering from, it took them 5 years, 5 different neurologists, dozens of needle sticks, 5 MRIs, 8 different type of genetic testing, 13 different therapies and interventions, over 5 years of just trying to find out what they had, many sleepless nights, not just for them, but also for the families, and thousands of dollars to understand again what they had. Nowadays, with the platform that we're providing, we can bring down this time to less than 13 hours by doing whole genome sequencing on these babies. In this case, these babies had a rare genetic neurological condition called MEPAN, and they were lucky in a way that they were able to do whole genome sequencing after 5 years again, and we just want more happy babies to be around. So with our system, again, we're helping to push NGS or next generation sequencing testing forward, so that there's many more of these babies where we could have a faster and more accurate diagnosis of what they had, in this case, a rare genetic condition. So that's one of the examples that we're working on, and a brief overview of our company, and I'm happy to answer any questions that there might be.
Great. Thank you so much, Alejandro. That was very clear, and yeah, definitely inspiring work and important work that you're doing. So for me, I mean, I wanted to go back first to some kind of basic questions. You touched upon a few things there, but for those who are maybe new to these topics, can you kind of explain to us what you mean by digital microfluidics?
Yes. So our core technology, and this is where we have over 40 patent applications, is called digital microfluidics. As you can see on the slide, we basically have the mirror canvas. If you open the lid of our instrument, here what you're looking at is just a bed of electrodes, or an array of electrodes. So every little square that you see there is an electrode. And what we do, we basically apply voltage to these electrodes, and that creates a capacitance force that enables us to move and control the droplets in a very precise manner. So here you're looking at 4 different droplets. You can imagine one of these droplets being a patient sample. Another of these droplets could be a buffer, or the reagents you need to prepare the sample in order to be sequenced. And we can control these in a very precise manner, and also independently from each other. So instead of having someone pipetting throughout an entire workflow that can take many hours, and it's just very complex workflow to do, now we're fully automating this without the need of any tips, without the need of any robotic liquid handler, in a much more precise and affordable manner. So this is what we call digital microfluidics. It's also known as electrowetting. It's a phenomenon that has been there for many years, but we were able to put it in a product that is robust enough to help in life sciences.
Great. So, I mean, we have 2 questions from the crowd. One of them, I think you touched up on a bit already. So, Saurabh was basically asking, how is digital microfluidics better than the traditional? You mentioned the automation part, cutting down time. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's just, in a way, it's simpler. You don't require channels. Many times channels are complex to manufacture. If you're thinking about small volumes being pushed through channels, then that has a lot of complexity in the manufacturing portion of it. And then what's beautiful about microfluidics is that we can basically combine different unit functions together. So we have, in this case, we have Peltier elements that are beneath this bed of electrodes. So we can now be mixing at the same time as heating or cycling temperature, and that helps with the kinetics in the reactions, and many times having better yields in the workflows you're working with. Also, when you're working with traditional fluidics, you need pumps and valves that are, again, many times complex to operate, and many times you also have some residue left behind in the channels that you're working with. In this case, again, we just operate in an open space, and that helps us have very precise control on the droplet itself, not just in the way it moves, but also in the temperature and conditions that the droplet is exposed to at any given time. So we just see more flexibility with traditional digital microfluidics. Also, many times when you have channel-based microfluidics, you're basically limited to the channel itself. In our case, we just have an open array of electrodes where you can just be moving droplets in any direction you want. So it gives you a lot more flexibility when you're thinking of automating a wide range of different protocols. We're right now expanding the menu of applications that you can be run. that you can run in the system, and you don't need to change any hardware configuration. It's just the same bit of electrodes that, depending on the workflow that you want to run, you basically just change the software that would allow these reagents to move in any direction you want, and you're not restricted to the design of the channels that you have put together.
I see. Thanks for that. So there's another question more about the technology as well. So is it just the size of NGS that you've miniaturized, or is it also the deal flow? So meaning the time taken to have the analysis done has also been shortened.
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. Right now, NGS in general has been it's something that has been progressing enormously throughout the last 2 decades. If we think about the first sequencing technology out there, and we now just think about next year, there's going to be probably 10 new sequencing technologies coming to market, and all of them are offering different advantages. But if you compare from the first one to the ones that are coming up next year, we're seeing a huge decrease in speed. I mean, in length, increase in speed, increase in accuracy, and decrease in cost. So it's not just one portion of the NGS workflow, but if you look at every different portion within the NGS workflows, we are seeing dramatic advancements.
Yeah, it sounds really, revolutionary for this area. And I guess it's no surprise that you're collaborating then with fellow companies. You talked about it briefly, but you did have a big highlight last year, your collaboration with Twist Bioscience, which, if others here are not familiar, is a leading synthetic biology company that is developing a DNA synthesis platform. So could you tell us more about what was the objective of your work together, and how did that get started?
Yes, and I think this goes back to actually one of the largest genomic conferences in the US is called AGBT. That's where I met with Emily, who is the co-founder and CEO of Twist Biosciences. And in life sciences, and at least this is what we think, collaboration is key. Here, the mission is far beyond us as a company to do well. Here, we're committed to well-being of society, and the larger the mission, the more collaboration you need. And in this case, with Twist, there's just a really good match. They provide reagents for library preparation for next generation sequencing. They have several kits in the market, and we just see a really good fit in terms of using their reagents or automating and simplifying their workflows with their reagents in our platform. So now the user, they can buy the reagents from Twist, and instead of doing all of that workflow manually, or instead of needing to buy a very large robotic liquid handler that is expensive, they can just buy our platform and run in a fully automated fashion the reagents from Twist. So this is actually a quote from Emily, where that she announced almost 2 years ago now, where she says, collaborating with Miraculous, an up-and-coming leader in the field of NGS workflow automation, signifies one more way in which we're bringing our versatile and clinically efficient solutions to those researchers solving global challenges. So there's just, I think, a really good fit when we think about the mission of our company and the mission of Twist Biosciences, and we're really happy about this collaboration, because at the end of the day, we want to simplify the life of our users, and this is one of the ways we can simplify the life of our users while achieving our mission to advance science and improve lives faster together.
Yeah, that's really great and inspiring, because startup or the startup company collaborations are definitely key. But I guess that along the way you must have run into some challenges as well. Could you maybe speak about some of those and what you learned from that?
Yeah, there's so many challenges when you start a company. In our case, I think that the first challenge was not being from the US. We're all immigrants starting this company, and we had to move here without much money, without working visas, without a lab. So it was literally like starting from scratch. And I think that's where it's really important what you're working on, because there are days that are just very, very difficult. So if what you're working on is not something that really drives you, and it's not something that you're committed to do, because of something bigger than yourself, then I just think it's going to be really difficult for you to succeed. In our case, for the first large round of investment, we pitched over 100 times, and we got 100 no's, and it was we were just so determined to get this company ongoing that we could have pitched 200 times, and there was nothing that was going to stop us to start the company. And it's the same determination that we have now. But that's probably one of the biggest challenges we had, was really just to raise our first larger round of investment, which was our Series Seed in the US. It took us, it was just a lot of work, a lot of no's. So it really tested us in terms of how much we really wanted to start this company.
Great. Yeah, you opened the floor a bit to fundraising, so that's always a big question for startups. I have some questions. I see some questions on the chat. I'll get to those in a second. But I guess, yeah, just going back first to the beginning. I mean, it seems like the key source of capital that you went for was really equity funding, even at your founding date. I guess what drove that decision, and how did you decide when was the right time to fundraise?
Yeah, on our case, and again, the very first source of capital was startup competitions, as many of those are equity free. We actually were three founders, myself in Chile, my co-founder in Mexico, another co-founder in Europe. We applied to three startup competitions, one in Chile, one in Mexico, one in Europe. We won the three of those, and that gave us the initial capital to start. Still a small amount of capital for a biotech company, but good enough to start building, or at least to just get going. Then when it comes to additional sources of capital in life sciences in general, there's traditionally two attractive sources of capital. One is grants. In the US, they do give grants for sciences. In our case, unfortunately, because we were all immigrants, we didn't qualify to any of the national public grants. So that was not an option for us. If it would have been an option, for sure, we would have evaluated it. Many of these grants, again, are equity free. Some of those, they do require a lot of work in terms of documentation and just being compliant with the requirements of the grant, but it's equity free, and it could be a really good amount of capital that is being heavily used by startups here to get going. So then that really left us with equity option, and also in biotech, having the right investors and smart investors can really help grow the company. So in our case, we decided, and again, we didn't have much of an option, so that's why we went for equity instead of any other type of financing. Afterwards, as you raise more money, there's other alternatives that become available, like venture debt and other options. But at the very beginning, it was just equity.
Okay. Yeah, so Jose Luis has a follow-up to that, actually. Yeah, so more in detail about your journey and financing. So how did you approach the investors? What is the kind of relationship you have with them? It seems like you have a good relationship. And how involved are they in day-to-day operations?
Yeah, so I think the one aspect to raising funds in the US, and I can speak from our latest round of funding early in the year. One of the investors we have and that joined the latest round of funding is called Section 32. Section 32 is managed by Bill Maris, who is the founder of Google Ventures, and Mike Pellini, who was president of Foundation Medicine that was acquired by Roche. in $2 billion, and I had met Mike probably over 3 years before he invested, and it's really about building trust. I think that's one aspect that many would underestimate how important building trust is, especially in a biotech company where the cycles are just naturally longer, or in deep tech companies where it just takes time to build innovative technology. And it's not just building technology, but actually productizing technology, which is many times even harder than the technology itself. So we started building those relationships from the very beginning. And the way you approach investors, the best introduction you could have to an investor is an introduction given by another entrepreneur that has done well with an investor. So from the very beginning, we started networking. We started trying to meet other founders. We started going to several events just to get to know, again, other fellow entrepreneurs that could make good introductions to investors that, or to potential investors that then became investors.
Yeah, that's super good concrete advice. So yeah, you alluded briefly to the big fundraising you closed this year. So you closed a Series B of 45 million, which is, and after just 7 years of your founding, I think that can be quite fast for some, healthcare startups. I guess, what were the key steps you took? What do you think was enabled you to achieve that? I mean, was it focusing more on your technology and just letting that speak for itself? Did you focus on the team or growing your network? Could you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, so it was I mean, we're very happy about the round itself, and again, we're very happy with the investors that joined that round. We had, as I said, Section 32 is a really great investor. We also had Kota Capital join the round, again, really great investor. And I think one of the key aspects to raise that round was what we were able to achieve as a team during COVID. So COVID was just really hard for many companies. So it was for us. And during COVID, we were able to basically launch a product, keep the team together, keep the progress ongoing, launch our first product, and that gave investors confidence that if we were able to do that during such a difficult time, then we could do a lot more in a more hopefully normal life. And in terms of the aspects that we focus on, I think the technology is really important, but it's not sufficient. Having a good technology or having an interesting technology, again, when you think about raising a larger round of funding, or when you think about approaching the market, having a great technology is just not enough. So in our case, what we focused on from the very beginning was not just to build a good technology, but also to productize in a way that works, and not be us the ones that would vouch for our technology, but be our partners, the one that vouch for our technology. So from the very beginning, we thought, who are the best key opinion leaders in the industry that we can work with, that can also vouch for our technology, and we started building those relationships. So, for example, nowadays we work with the Broad Institute, which is the genomics institute from Harvard and MIT in Boston. We started building that technology way back from probably 2015, 2016. And they became one of our first customers. Actually, one of the first systems that we ever placed in the market was at the Broad Institute, and they were the ones that presented data using our system, and it's just a really strong validation from these players that the technology works. So we just focus on who were the best key opinion leaders that we could work with. We started building those relationships. We treated them as the most important thing in the world, and that really helped us get this round of funding.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the advice that we do hear as well from other startups. But it's good to get reminded that having champions and partners is important, not just developing the technology. So we have a few more questions from the crowd, getting a bit out of the fundraising side now. One question: so NGS market is highly competitive.
Mhm.
What are the hurdles that you faced while bringing your technology in this market, and how have you addressed them, I guess?
Yeah, so I think the because NGS is highly competitive, um, you need to provide a solution that works really well, and it's just very robust. So if you were in a space where there's just very few options out there, you could probably get away with something that works, but not necessarily works excellent. When you're entering into a highly competitive market, what you provide needs to work really, really well, and needs to be very, very different from what is out there already. So I think again, it's a large enough market that where several players can play, but at the same time, because of how competitive it is, you need to be at another level. I mean, when we think about an MVP in a highly competitive market, it's just a different level of an MVP compared to an MVP in a market where there's not many solutions available.
Okay. And another question about the technology again. So, what are the other applications of digital microfluidics besides the one you mentioned in NGS? And are you exploring, ways to act on those different markets as well?
Yes, so that's an interesting question because we are right now we have our core track in NGS, but at the same time we have gotten a lot of interest from different researchers and the market to do other things using our technology. So what we recently enabled as well is what we call a developer's kit program, where we provide the same instrument or the same system, but we give additional access to our software. So now users can develop their own methods outside of NGS. And it's just very exciting to see users developing methods that we just never thought of developing ourselves. And these methods are not just in NGS, but we're seeing applications in proteomics, we're seeing applications in synthetic biology. So we just really don't know where users can take this technology. We're super excited to see what is it that they can develop using our technology, and if we see something that is super interesting, we will definitely help them productize it and come up with something that can be offered to a broader population.
Great. So yeah, we're getting close to the end. I have one more question, and perhaps that'll give the others opportunity to ask any last questions they have. So mine is pretty basic. I usually ask it at the end of the sessions, but yeah, if you could go back to the beginning stages when you were just in early stage startup looking for funding, everything, and developing the technology, what's the big advice? What's something that you wish you would have done a bit differently?
I think oof, there's just a lot of things that I would have done differently. I think one thing that I wouldn't have done differently is when choosing the team to start. I think is the impact of the people you work with is I just always think that is understated. At the end of the day, this is people, people, and people, and the larger the mission, the more you need good people to be around you. And when I think about people, it's people that are just very different to you. Sometimes we tend to get surrounded by people that are similar to us, that think similar to us, because we just feel more comfortable. In this case, I would advise the opposite. Go with people that are just very different to you in the way they think, people that are very different to you in their backgrounds and experiences, but very similar to you in the core values that they live by. There's going to be so many difficult moments in a startup where those values are going to be tested once and again and again. And I see companies where the founding team share the same core values that just do a lot better than companies where those core values are not aligned. And unfortunately, um, I think the core values are tested only when things are not going really well. So unfortunately, you have to wait for that to happen. But that's something that I would definitely advise on doing. And then the other one is probably as soon as you can, build collaborations with those key opinion leaders. I mean, they can really make a difference in your startup. They can really make a difference in guiding the design of the product you're building. So as soon as you can, just get to those guys, start building those relationships, because they're the ones that can really allow your company to succeed.
Great, thanks. Really good advice. One final question from the crowd. So what will you bring to the market or to your portfolio of products before the next round of funding? What's the dream?
Well, yeah, right now we're just very focused on expanding the our what we call early access program. We are shipping systems almost every week now. We're expanding the menu of applications that customers can run using our system, and really we want to keep expanding that. We want users to have the system and just be constantly receiving updates where are different applications that they can run. There's no need to change anything on the instrument. There's no need to change anything on the consumable. As we keep developing new products or new applications, they can simply download them, run them. And the dream is really that we are not the only ones developing those applications, but we also see the community developing new applications so that we can leverage in a collective knowledge of people developing new applications. I mean, there's so many smart people out there that can definitely do things that we just can't even think of. And if we're able to tap into that collective scientific curiosity and knowledge that at the same time can be shared among the community, I think that's pretty impactful.
It's really great. Well, best of luck, and yeah, we can't wait to hear what's next. I'm sure there'll be more. But thank you so much, Alejandro, for sharing your insights. And thank you to everyone else who joined us. Any final words from you, Alejandro?
No, thanks again for inviting me. I'm very happy to participate in this chat. Again, I just had the best memories from Hello Tomorrow, and I just encourage every entrepreneur out there that is starting to apply to go to this event. It's a really good event, especially for networking, and networking again is one of those things that are just really important as you progress in your company. So thanks again for inviting me. I'm available anytime. As I said, if you guys any one of you are interested in learning more, you can send me an email. My email is alejandro@miraculous.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to help or assist in any way I can.
Great, thank you. So thanks again to everyone who joined today. If you want, you'll have access to the replay of the session at the end of the session. And also, we do a series of these kinds of events, not just this series. Sometimes we also have corporates that come on stage. We also have investors that share their insights. So don't hesitate to go to our website and subscribe to the core. Otherwise, yeah, the Global Summit again is coming up. So don't hesitate to reach out to us to learn more about that. We'll be happy to welcome you all in person or online. So thank you, Alejandro, and everyone. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you.